Arcade Heroes.
Hey everyone, this is Adam at ArcadeHeroes.com, and for this video I had the idea to look at something that a lot of you generally don't see out there unless you work at an arcade or you just so happen to show up at an arcade as soon as they open, and that deals with boot up times and loading times. Now, as you saw at the beginning of this video after the Arcade Heroes opener, I threw in the boot up time of an old 80s arcade game, and those were pretty fast. But of course, most things in the 80s, unless it was off of a cassette tape or a floppy disk, were pretty quick because the programs were not very large. Like for the Atari 2600, it had 2 and 4 kilobyte games. Of course, that increased with things like the NES Master System and so on, but on cartridges, these things would tend to load pretty fast. Arcade machines would load pretty fast, but as technology progressed, games got bigger and went from kilobytes to megabytes to gigabytes to terabytes, and very, very rare. Well, the only game I've ever heard of that's getting close to a terabyte is Galloping Ghost's Dark Presence, so that's probably the only exception to the rule there. Most of them are still in the gigabyte range, but still, they're big programs. There's a lot of data to be shuffled there. And so now there is talk right now with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X that they are going to have very quick loading times, or near instant or something along those lines. So the question comes to mind, how do modern arcades handle this? And so we're going to take a look at a few games that I have here. Now normally in my arcade, when I open up, I'm open right now, but I haven't had any customers in yet. I don't like to turn everything on when nobody's around, because sometimes it can go a few hours before I'll get somebody walking into the doors, but I have to be open per the mall rules. And so I will just turn on some games near the front and hope that draws somebody in. And still, even then, there'll be people who look at the games that are on, but see that there's games in the back that are off and say, oh, they must be closed, and keep walking. So, oh well there, but it's better to try and save a little money on the electricity. But yeah, since most don't see the process of what happens on the startup, you might get the impression that all arcade games should load like they were from the 1980s, when that's not really a terribly realistic expectation. However, I think, as you'll see from the games that I'll show you here, I think there's a lot of room for improvement that can be done, especially where console makers like Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo are working at making things load a lot faster. And one of the examples that I'm going to show here also do demonstrate that it is possible with modern arcade hardware, which, well, pretty much all of it is PC based these days, can have very quick loading times. So let's start off with Bandai Namco Amusement's Maximum Tune 5. Then jumping over to Raw Thrills, which is a very common and widely spread brand name across the United States and in other parts of the world. Let's do Big Buck Hunter Reloaded, which was released this year, 2020.
Hey, Hot Racer, insert point. Come on, we're waiting for you. Hey, Hot Racer, insert coin. Come on, we're waiting for you. Ready? Go! Hey, Hot Racer, insert coin. Come on, we're waiting for you. The map shows the players with their destination. Hey, Hot Racer, insert coin. Come on, we're waiting for you. Ready? Go! Yeah!
then jumping back a couple of years, let's do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 2018. One thing to also mention here is that there are security checks that go into place. Like all modern systems have some form of security, and so that's part of what may cause loading times or boot up times to be a little long. But also should mention that once these games have loaded, like loading levels is usually pretty fast. Although Ninja Turtles, I do think it still takes a few seconds. On Big Buck Reloaded, it's pretty quick, almost, I think pretty much instantaneous once those do load. Or when you pick one of the mini games, specified. Throughout all of that, we now come to the system that, again, this is a PC-based platform, just like Raw Thrills uses PCs, Bandai Namco uses PCs, but we have the Exa Arcadia. And now, again, while all these PCs aren't always just off-the-shelf computers, sometimes there are changes to them. The Exa Arcadia itself has cartridge ports, which are not common, don't really exist on modern PCs, but as you'll see here, it's quite the fast boot up and even faster loading times on the games themselves.
正常軌道を確認。任務執行します。無限の力で新たな空へ。パワートゥーザエクサ。
Lightning Nights.
And then we'll also throw in some pinball machines so you can compare. I mean, pinball machines obviously don't have as much data, but as you'll see, I have some modern pinball machines using the Spike 2 hardware, and then I also have an older Adams family, which is from the 90s, and it'll load up almost instantly compared to the Stearns. So there you have it. Those are some boot up times, loading times on the different machines. I guess one thing to point out is that there's usually security checks that take place during the boot up process for all of these machines, as piracy still happens out there, and it's been quite a problem for a lot of manufacturers. It's always been a problem, but they have their own mechanisms and methods of trying to keep the game secure as they can. But yeah, can things be done to improve loading times? I think the X Arcadia shows that yes, it can be done. I mean, even console manufacturers are recognizing that more can or should be done to improve them. Granted, it is not a big issue for most people because, again, most people are coming in as soon as the arcades open their doors, and maybe some arcades are able to power things up before they even unlock the doors, and so nobody even sees these processes take place. And so just something that I did purely out of interest and to satiate any curiosity out there, as for the most part it's nothing that's going to affect your gameplay unless there are, of course, loading screens while you're going into a game and choosing options and trying to get to the play part. So yeah, again, not a big deal, but hope you still enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.